Well, good morning and welcome to Lincoln School for the Arts. My name is LaShawn Dixon and I have the honor of being the principal here at Lincoln. We are so excited to have Governor John Bel Edwards, Superintendent of Jefferson Parish, Dr. James Gray, Representative Kyle Green, Representative Rodney Lyons, members of the school board, elected officials, Lincoln alumni, Lincoln students, faculty and staff who are present in the cafeteria as well as live on Google Meet in their classrooms, and of course, all of you who are in attendance today. Thank you so much for coming to our school, Governor Edwards. Of course, when we first heard that the governor was coming to Lincoln, we were so overwhelmed and beaming with our Lions pride, right? Lincoln School for the Arts is a magnet school rich in culture and exposes our students to visual arts and music daily. Students in grades 3rd through 8 participate in an after-school program in which they're exposed to dance, majorettes, the marching band, choir, and visual arts. Lincoln has a very rich history of being one of the historic African-American schools on the West Bank that was originated as a high school. Although it has transitioned to a K-8, Lincoln's alumni continues to pour all of that good Lion and Trojan knowledge, their time, and their talents to us. At this time, I have the privilege and honor to introduce Superintendent Dr. James Gray.
Good morning. This is going to be a challenge a little bit. Good morning, everyone. We're excited to have everyone here. I'd like to thank Ms. LaShawn Dixon for doing a wonderful job of leading this wonderful school. And in our presence, we're being blessed with the presence of our wonderful students. So kids, can y'all kind of say hi and hello? We have some very, very strong kids in Jefferson Parish, and we have been able to make a lot of progress over the past few years. And it's because of these little bright-eyed children like we see here today that is actually helping us prove to the world that Jefferson Parish has some high-quality students. I'm also very fortunate enough to have a very strong board. We have several of our board members here that have been very supportive of us. And we also have many of our central office staff here who is also working day in and day out to make sure we can provide a high-quality educational system for our students. We're very blessed to have the governor and many of our delegates here in the building today because of one reason: our children. We all know that this legislation will give us an opportunity to provide meals to a ton of students in our school system. Based off of the way it is written, we have 94% of our kids that will be impacted by this. And we all know the importance of having a full stomach when you're trying to learn. And so for all of you that have been through trying times, know that if you are hungry, you cannot learn. If you are not focusing on whether or not you had a quality breakfast, you're not focusing on the work that you need to do in our schools. And what we want to do is provide an opportunity for our kids to be engaging in the things that make them successful. And so having Representative Green to lead the charge to have legislation that will allow us to provide meals throughout the day to many of our students is only going to help us overall in how we perform as students, as a school, but also as a school system. At this time, I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce Governor John Bel Edwards, who will be coming up to say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gray. It's great to be here in Jefferson Parish. And Mrs. Dixon, thank you for opening your beautiful school. And thanks to all these beautiful young people for being here today. What we're announcing really has everything to do with you. And I'm so pleased to be here in Jefferson Parish, accompanied by some folks from the legislature, including a couple who've already been mentioned, Representative Kyle Green and Representative Rodney Lyons. But we also have Representatives Delisha Boyd, Polly Thomas, and Candace Newell, who are here. Did anybody else sneak in from the legislature? Okay, it's good to have them here as well. So we're talking about nutrition, we're talking about food, and we're talking about breakfast and lunch being available for students. So until House Bill 282 was authored by Representative Kyle Green, passed this past session, and signed into law by me, obviously we had reduced price lunches. So somewhere between a free meal and breakfast, somewhere between free and full cost, we had this reduced price. And at the end of the day, it just doesn't make sense to continue that. And so what we were able to do is to sign into law so that no kid is going to be paying a reduced price. So that is going to be a free breakfast and a free lunch for many more kids, not just here at this school and not just in Jefferson Parish, but all over the country. And it's a pretty simple bill. The amount that would have been collected is now going to be reimbursed to the district from the State Department of Education. And why are we doing this? Because nutrition is an extremely part of your day. It's what helps you to learn. My wife, as you all know, or many of you know at least, was an elementary music teacher. And she saw every kid in the school once a week. And she was able to tell me that there were certain kids that she knows were coming to school hungry, and it impacted their ability to learn. And so we want our kids learning as much as possible. We want them to have the nutrition that they need to grow and to be healthy. And quite frankly, having food in your stomach helps you to pay attention. It helps you to pay attention. It is an essential component of your education. And so this bill goes a long way to addressing that. And obviously it's part of what we're doing in Louisiana to say we really do value our young people. The most precious natural resource that God has entrusted to our care, and look, a lot of precious natural resources out there, but the most precious, the most important are our young people. And you demonstrate that when you do things like make healthcare more accessible for people, when you support families like the Medicaid expansion, the CHIPS program, when you elevate the role of the Children's Cabinet. Quite frankly, you express your support for children when you support public education and you give their teachers a pay raise, because the most important part of your education is still having a professional, highly motivated teacher in the classroom with you. And so we've been able to do all the things that I've just mentioned, and since I've been governor, we actually have increased teacher pay by about $5,100 per year. I figured there'd be at least one teacher in here that would do something about that. By the way, we still have a little ways to go there in order to get to the Southern Regional average. I love these legislators. I'd asked them to do that this year. Weren't quite able to get there, but should be able to do it in the near future because we are extremely close. Because what we all understand is these young people today that we're looking at, they're our leaders for the future. They are going to be our workforce. They're going to be the ones who are practicing medicine and finding the cures for diseases and doing all sorts of wonderful things. But they're not going to be able to do those things if we don't support them now. And that's why we're doing all the things that I just talked about. So in just a few minutes, you're going to hear from a couple of more speakers. And then I'm going to go over and ceremonially sign this bill. And ceremonially because obviously the bill's already been signed. It's in law. But I did want to come here to Jefferson Parish today to be with all of you so that we don't just have a bill that quietly went into law, but that we can acknowledge what we're doing, that we can celebrate it, that we can commit ourselves to doing even more in the future, but also to thank Representative Kyle Green for authoring the bill, and all the other legislators for voting for it. The truth is, and this is something we were discussing a little bit before we came in here today, I happen to believe that meals, breakfast and lunch, are such an important part of the day. They're so integral to kids being able to learn. And quite frankly, the cost of providing that lunch to everybody in the grand scheme of things is relatively minimal, that I don't think any kid in public school should ever have to pay for a breakfast or a lunch. And I'm hopeful that the legislature will be able to take care of that next year. I can tell you that we are leaving the state when we leave office in January with more than enough money to do that, should it choose to do that, in addition to a little more teacher pay, by the way. So thank you all for coming out and joining us this morning. I look forward to being in the cafeteria with these young people and going through the line shortly. It was about this time every day when I went through 6th, 7th, and 8th grade in the high school that was built in my town for the African American folks. But obviously by the time I went to school, it was integrated and so forth. But it was about this time every day I could start to smell those yeast rolls. I would make up some excuse to leave class, run through the cafeteria, and I had the cafeteria worker would be looking for me, and she would just toss me a hot roll as I did that. I don't know how many of you still have that opportunity, but I know those lunchroom workers, for me at least, because I love to eat, they were as important to me as my English teacher and everybody else. But in any event, I'm excited to be here to go to the cafeteria with you. And I want to look at these young people one more time and thank you all for being here. Everything that I just mentioned is all about you and those who look like you all over the state of Louisiana. So thank you so much, and God bless.
Thank you all, and I want to thank you, Governor, for always being there. You have been the education governor. You have been the governor for the children. You have been a great governor to work with. Been great for the state, great for this parish, and great for this district. So I want to thank you for all you've done, and you gave me and Kyle something to work on next session. So what I wanted to say was, even though we talk about the need to have nutrition and what have you, everyone doesn't always feel like when you're spending money on stuff in this state that is really warranted. So with everybody speaking and some of my words been gone, I'm just going to tell you before I bring up the author of the bill that we co-authored this bill. And how this bill got to the final leg of the match is because he came before appropriations. I don't know, was it already funded already? No. It wasn't funded. So he came before appropriations to fund it. And we have a guy on that committee, I'm going to call him Ray. He always objects to everything. He says, I don't think money should be spent. And this is well after the budget bill was done. So I'm huddled up with some of my guys from Jefferson Parish, and I say, Ray, you got a measure coming today, same as Kyle's bill. You're asking for a fund. If Kyle's bill doesn't make it out of here, I don't think yours is going to make it either. He says, why? I said, I got votes to stop that from happening. So if you object to this funding of this bill here, we got to have a problem with yours. So nonetheless, Representative Green's come up, presents his bill. So I'm looking at Ray. Ray's looking at me. So he comes up and makes his plea, asking questions about the funding. So I said, Kyle, you can close. I'm not in close your bill. Let's get this done. So he closes, and Ray looks at me. I said, Ray, count votes. So Ray doesn't object. Ray says nothing. The bill comes out of committee unopposed. Perfect. So Ray says, you really got me that time. I said, well, it's about kids. We can never vote against kids. We always got to support kids. That's what it's about. Your district and mine throughout the state, kids are the most important thing that we have. So because of your good behavior, we're going to let your bill get out. 2 weeks later, we get to the House floor. Those bills come up at the same time. Again, Representative Green goes first. His bill comes out unanimous. No one voted against it. Ray comes up with his bill. Some of his colleagues voted down. I said, Ray, you see, you can't never go against kids. But the moral of the story is we fight for everybody in the state. Every kid, doesn't matter whether you're in North Louisiana, South Louisiana, wherever you are the most important asset. And thank you all for being here. I'm glad to work with my colleague to do whatever we can for kids, and we're going to keep on fighting because, like the governor said, there's more we can do. And at this point in time, I want to thank you, but I want to bring to you my colleague, the author of this bill, the guy who steadfastly worked through this process, and he deserved this moment. And again, Representative Kyle Green.
First of all, thank you for everyone who came here to support the ceremonial signing of this bill. As the governor stated, you know, and my grandfather used to say, who was a former retired assistant principal, that our children are our greatest natural resource. And so any investment that we can make in our children is an investment worth making, no matter what the amount is. And so that's what this bill does. It invests in our children for their future. Now, anything that happens big in Baton Rouge, or even small, does not happen. You can't do it alone. Although I'm the author of this bill, there are many co-sponsors, there are many people who voted for the bill. Actually, the entire legislature voted for this bill. So I can't stand here today and not thank my legislative colleagues, both Democratic and Republican, who supported this bill, and many of them are here. So thank you to those individuals. So a little bit of background as to how this bill came, you know, to where we are today. You know, I called my good friend, our Public Service Commissioner, Devontae Lewis, and I asked him, what did he think about this bill? And he said it's a great bill. So he shot me the language over, I gave it to staff, and staff drafted it. So then when I filed the bill, I had two very influential lobbyists contact me and wanted to help support this bill. And that was none other than Liz Mangum with Southern Strategy, who represents No Kid Hungry, she's here, and Eric Sundstrom, who represents the School Nutritional Association of Louisiana. They helped shepherd this bill throughout the entire process. And, you know, the fact that we were able to get this bill done in a short period of time is nothing short of a miracle. The budget had already left the House and was pending in the Senate, and I had to go to the Senate and fight for the appropriation. And, I want to thank Senator Cleo Fields for helping secure the funding for this bill for next year. You know, this bill, the fact that it passed unanimously and is strong bipartisan support, just underscores what we can do when we put aside our partisan differences and work together for a common good. And so, you know, I will be introducing a universal version of this bill next year. And I would challenge all of my colleagues who are returning for next year or the next term to sign on as co-sponsors for it, because I think it's worth it. And so, you know, lastly, last 4 years, I have had the pleasure to serve with Governor John Bel Edwards. And I can tell you, objectively speaking, I think that we're much better off for his service, not only for the last 4 years, but for the last 8. And so, Governor, thank you as you wind down your second term. Thank you for your service. So with that, you know, once again, thank you for coming, and let's sign the bill. All right.
So again, we want to thank everyone for coming today. At this time, I would like to invite our Lincoln students to come to join the governor in our signing.
Okay, so obviously, y'all know that was ceremonial. It was already act number 305, which meant it's in March, it's effective after the speech. This so thank you very much. Kyle, I'm going to do this to you. I got 4 students at the table. I'm not. Okay, so it is only 10:30. What's the earliest that y'all go to lunch? Okay, so 15 minutes.